We come now to the final Beatitude, the one that may be the most complex, challenging, and difficult to accept. So let's join a conversation with our Good News team, Lynn Shimatek, Lauren Welch, and John Shimatek.
Our Beatitude today is, "Blessed are those who are persecuted in the cause of right. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus saved the tough one for last.
This is the hardest one, I think.
So, who wants to be persecuted?
Not me.
So, what did Jesus mean by this? It is good. Blessed sometimes is translated as happy. So happy are those who are persecuted. What might Jesus mean by this?
I think that's what makes this one of the more difficult Beatitudes to grasp or buy into, because you asked the great question at the beginning, who wants to be persecuted? The answer has got to be no. Nobody wants to be persecuted. I think that would not be a sign of a healthy person if you wanted to be persecuted. If we look deeper, the persecution is actually for a reason. You're not being persecuted because someone disagrees with you politically, let's say. There's no blessedness to being persecuted because of the color of your skin, or the language you speak, your sexual identity, or preferences, your gender, your age. There's no blessing in being persecuted because of those things. Those are all injustices in the world. But what is Jesus really saying about what kind of persecution can lead to blessedness? Can lead to happiness, as you said, Lauren. That word is supposed to be happy too. What kind of persecution, or for what reason, someone being persecuted actually lead to a happy or fulfilled life in some way?
The person is being persecuted because they believe in Jesus. They show they believe in Jesus and God by the love in their heart, their peacemaking abilities and all that. And then they're persecuted because people can be petty, they can be just evil, and they will persecute you. If you have those feelings in your heart, then you are probably feeling closer to God, closer to Jesus, and closer to the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, I think there's something to that for sure. A lot of what you were talking about, Jesus, as he goes on, there's more to that beatitude than on that. The verse continues and talks about being blessed because these were the ways that things were for the prophets before you. There was a certain kind of blessedness or happiness that prophets achieved. And that's still hard. I'm still struggling with this one. Just to be clear, being a prophet was not about telling what the future was going to bring. Being a prophet was telling the truth about the present world, the present state. If you are there as a Christian, making prophetic statements about the disconnect between the current state of the world and what we understand to be a divine intention for creation, you can get into trouble. Very safe space with your churchy friends and everybody's okay with that, then that's one thing. But once you get beyond that group and say the truth about what's happening around us, that can lead to persecution.
Just like it did for Jesus. Jesus was calling people to live more deeply out of love and to see each one as a beloved child of God. And people didn't want to hear this. They wanted to obey the rule. I think even Christians today find it hard to follow these blueprints that we've been talking about these last 8 weeks, because they are harder to follow than the rules. And the dogmas that we proclaim stand up as Jesus did, and to stand up as people throughout. I know that we talked about John Lewis before in one of our sessions, but he's the first person that comes to mind for me again today as being persecuted for with the evil that he fought against. He was beaten and he called people get into trouble. John calls it good trouble. When we are fighting for justice, and I think that's what this is about, for fighting for justice, peacemaking, bringing peace, bringing justice for everyone. That's what Jesus was doing. Hung around with the wrong people of his time, with women, with tax collectors, and that he eventually was crucified. That will happen to us, and we may not be crucified, but if we live out our faith, if we practice these Beatitudes and really work to for justice, for all people to live without want, for all people to have not everything they want, but what they need, to be able to be healthy and happy. We aren't going to be the most popular people in the world. If we stand up for the refugees who are coming to our country, but that's what we're called to do. I still like John Lewis's phrase of calling us to get into good trouble. I think that's what Jesus was talking about in this particular Beatitude.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it to me too. I was listening to some of those examples we've been talking about for 8 weeks through the Beatitudes. What strikes me, or what's coming to me as a question, is to what extent is this all about change? People, it's part of human nature, I think, that we tend not to embrace change. I'll speak for myself. I don't embrace change usually. Sometimes, even though people are in a terrible situation, they're willing to have the status quo continue rather than have it change. And so I think that this is where Jesus was a huge change agent. He wasn't trying to start a new religion. He was just trying to get people to change their hearts and get back to being right with God. And that's what this is all about too. And so I think that you're right, Lauren, and Lynn, when we think about persecution, I think what that might mean is persecution is a resistance to change that I'm trying to advocate for or bring about in some way. And change meaning to do something to change the situation of poverty, injustice, oppression, of all kinds of oppression. And we could still disagree. Disagreement's okay and healthy. We can all learn from that. But I think being a true peacemaker, that's bringing about change. It's bringing back a change from the status quo. Every one of these Beatitudes has to do with change, internal change, or change in some societal or relationship, primarily about relationships. I think that's what the Christian belief is about, loving relationships, and it involves change. It's tough to do, and a reaction to that is the negative thing we can call persecution. Just name it. Say that's what it is. I think just like the flip side of all the Beatitudes is the hope that this change will actually take place, and that we have a role in bringing about that change. And when we do, and we start to see it, or at least hope for it, that's what brings the happiness. That's what brings the blessedness, having the hope that things are changeable.
John, I agree. And even if we don't see it, it's that hope that our children or grandchildren will see it. Change is so hard to embrace. There's been so much change in our own lives.
And I often think too is that I think of what you say, Lauren, and I think I'm beginning to understand what you mean when you say we have to become brokenhearted. We have to have our hearts broken, open, so that we can have God show us the way. And that's the big change. That's a terrible thing to do. But the promise is so wonderful.
I would ask people who are listening to us, what is it that is changing in your life that you find difficult to embrace? And what might happen if you begin to find a way to embrace it. Might you find something good? And if it's something that really should not be embraced, then you can stand up and get into trouble for standing against it.
Thanks to all of our viewers and listeners for being with us. This is the 8th and final episode of the Beatitudes of Jesus and the blueprint for Christian life. We look forward to seeing you next time when we have something new.
Take care.
Peace and blessings.
This episode on the Beatitudes has been brought to you by Listening for Clues. You can find us at our website, listeningforclues.com, on our YouTube channel, or on just about any audio podcast channel. Hope to see you soon.